Ilara Vance's boots sank into the wet soil of the battlefield, each step a reminder of the chaos around her. Smoke and ash filled the sky, turning the light of the setting sun into a dull orange haze. The frontier planet of Kithera had never looked so desolate. Explosions echoed in the distance, and she could hear the distant roar of alien engines scraping across the rocky terrain. She kept moving, her medical pack bouncing against her back, as her heart pounded in rhythm with the tremors of nearby detonations. She had been sent here with a small human contingent to help evacuate civilians, but the mission had quickly turned into something far more dangerous. Amid the chaos, a soft whimper reached her ears. It was faint, almost lost in the roar of battle, but it pulled her attention like a magnet. She followed the sound through shattered walls of alien structures, ducking under fallen beams and leaping over smoldering craters. There in a narrow alley between jagged rocks, she saw it. A small Velari child, no more than 4 cycles old, trembling and bleeding from a deep cut on its arm. Its silvery blue skin shimmered faintly in the smoke, and its large, luminous eyes were wide with fear. The child's breaths were shallow, each one a struggle, and its small hands clutched at the dirt as if trying to hold onto something familiar. Ilara's training took over immediately. She dropped to her knees and knelt beside the child. "It's okay," she said softly, placing a gentle hand on its shoulder. "You're safe now." The child flinched at her voice but didn't cry. Its small eyes, so full of fear, stared directly at her. Ilara's heart clenched. She had seen many wounded humans before, but this child was different. Something about the innocence and helplessness struck her deeply. She tore a strip of cloth from her pack and pressed it against the wound, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. "We need to get you out of here," she whispered. The child's tiny hand touched hers hesitantly, as if asking for permission to trust. Ilara nodded and lifted it carefully into her arms. The world around them was dangerous. Human and Velari forces clashed in skirmishes nearby, and rogue mercenaries took advantage of the chaos to loot anything they could find. Ilara moved cautiously, scanning for threats as she carried the child. Each step was calculated, balancing speed and caution. As she moved, she remembered the stories she had heard about the Velari. They were a proud, intelligent species, fiercely protective of their own. And the child she carried, she realized with a sudden, chilling awareness, might belong to someone very important. The thought made her pulse quicken. Could this small, trembling being really be connected to the Velari queen? The idea seemed impossible, but the urgency in the child's eyes left no room for doubt. She had to get it to safety, no matter the risk. Her path took her through a ruined marketplace, debris scattered everywhere. The alien structures were elegant even in their destruction, their smooth curves and glowing panels a stark contrast to the rough human architecture she was used to. But beauty offered no safety here. She had to duck under falling metal, dodge flames, and sprint past open craters that could swallow her whole if she wasn't careful. At one point, a group of human soldiers passed by. They were heavily armed, their faces grim and exhausted. Ilara waved frantically. "I need help," she called out. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, stopped. "You're carrying a Velari child," he said, his voice cautious. "You know what that means, right?" "I know," Ilara replied, her voice firm, "but it's injured. I can't leave it here." He hesitated, then nodded. "Then I'll cover you." The squad formed a protective perimeter as she moved forward, their blasters ready. Despite their assistance, every step was tense. The child whimpered softly, and Ilara whispered comforting words, though she doubted it understood her language. Night fell, and the battlefield became even more treacherous. Shadows stretched across the cratered landscape, and distant explosions lit the horizon in flashes of red and orange. Ilara kept moving, her muscles aching, her mind focused on one goal: get the child to safety. She remembered a nearby cave system that could serve as temporary shelter. It wasn't far, but it was exposed to patrols from both sides. Using the cover of darkness, she zigzagged between rocks and fallen structures, careful to avoid detection. The child's breathing grew more labored, and she adjusted her grip, making sure the bleeding was under control. Halfway to the cave, a loud roar split the night. Alien patrols, large, 4-limbed Velari warriors, emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes scanning the area. Ilara froze. One wrong move could mean disaster. Then she saw it. The child stirred, and a soft, high-pitched sound emanated from its throat. The aliens stopped, their attention drawn to the small figure in her arms. Alara's heart raced. She had no idea if they would attack or recognize the child. To her surprise, the aliens lowered their weapons slightly. The child reached out a tiny hand, and one of the warriors bent down, touching it gently. Alara felt a wave of relief, but she stayed alert. "We need to move," she whispered, moving slowly toward the cave entrance. Once inside, she collapsed onto the floor, exhaustion overtaking her. The child nestled against her chest, finally allowing a soft, shaky breath. For the first time since the day began, Alara felt a glimmer of hope. She tended to the child's wounds as best as she could with her limited supplies. Bandages were applied, and antiseptic carefully dabbed on the deepest cuts. The child's eyes never left hers, and she felt an unspoken connection forming between them. Hours passed, and outside the cave, the sounds of battle faded into distant echoes. Alara kept watch, knowing the danger was far from over. She knew that once the queen discovered the child was safe, things would change. The Velari were a proud species, and they would not forget who had saved one of their own. By dawn, Alara had made a decision. She would not just protect the child. She would see it return to its mother, no matter the cost. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with unknown threats and perilous encounters, but she felt a deep resolve settle within her. The child stirred, reaching a small hand toward her face. Alara smiled softly, brushing the silvery blue strands from its forehead. "We'll get there," she promised. "I won't let anything happen to you." In that moment, a quiet determination filled her. The battlefield was chaotic, and the universe was vast and unforgiving, but she had made a choice. She would carry this child through danger, through fire and smoke, through alien worlds, and back to the one who had been waiting. As the sun rose over Kithara, its light catching the edges of distant craters, Alara lifted the child again. Together, they stepped out of the cave, ready to face whatever came next. For the first time, she felt that hope, the fragile, powerful hope that even in the darkest times, one human could make a difference. And somewhere, far across the battlefield, the Velari queen began to sense a presence she could not ignore, a human who had dared to carry her child through death itself. Alara felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. The child in her arms slept fitfully, trembling occasionally as if haunted by the events of the previous day. Outside, the battlefield's chaos had not fully ceased, though the distant sounds of explosions and engine roars had grown faint. The dawn light revealed the true devastation of Kithara. Once vibrant cities lay in ruins, jagged metal and crumbled stone stretching across the landscape like scars. A soft hum reached her ears, almost melodic, and she turned to see a group of Velari approaching. Their movements were graceful, almost floating above the uneven terrain. Their armor shimmered in hues of blue and silver, catching the morning sun as if it were part of the sky itself. Leading them was a figure taller and more majestic than the rest, the queen herself. Alara's heart skipped a beat. She had anticipated this meeting for hours, yet now that it had arrived, she felt a mixture of awe and fear. The queen's eyes, luminous and unyielding, fixed on the child she carried. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The distant wind, the faint crackle of fires, the soft cries of animals and humans, all faded into nothing. "You have done something no human has ever dared," the queen said, her voice a musical yet commanding tone. It resonated in Alara's chest, as if vibrating through the very air. "You carried my child through fire and death. You risked everything for the weakest among us." Alara swallowed, unsure how to respond. I couldn't leave it behind," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "It was hurt. I had to help." The queen studied her for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "That is courage. That is honor. I name you protector of the young." Alara blinked, stunned. The weight of the title pressed down on her, heavier than any armor she had worn, heavier than any responsibility she had ever faced. Protector of the young. She glanced down at the child, who stirred slightly in her arms. "What does that mean?" she asked softly. "It means," the queen replied, "that your life is now tied to theirs. You will defend them, guide them, and ensure their safety. In return, you have my trust and the loyalty of my people." The words filled Alara with a strange mix of pride and fear. Loyalty of an entire species was no small thing. She had trained for dangerous missions before, but this was different. This was not about survival or strategy or rank. This was about honor, duty, and a bond that could reshape the relationship between humans and the Velari. The queen stepped closer, reaching out a delicate hand to touch the child's head. The child stirred but did not cry. There was a moment of quiet connection, a silent understanding between the alien mother, the human protector, and the child who bridged the gap. Alara set the child down gently, kneeling to be at its level. "I promise," she said, meeting the queen's gaze, "I will do everything I can to keep them safe." The queen's expression softened, just slightly, a rare gesture from someone so regal and imposing. "I believe you." But the universe does not wait for promises alone. The Krykson are moving. They know we are vulnerable and they will strike. Ilara's stomach tightened. She had heard rumors of the Krykson, a warlike species that saw planets as resources to conquer, with little regard for life. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension. "You will lead a team," the queen said. "A joint team of humans and Velari. Your ingenuity, your courage, and your understanding of both worlds are needed. You must prepare for what is coming." The Krykson do not wait, and neither can we. For the next several cycles, Alara trained alongside the Velari warriors. At first, it was challenging. Their movements were precise and fluid, and their culture demanded respect in every action. They taught her to understand their body language, their methods of communication, even the subtle ways they wielded their energy-based weapons. She adapted quickly, using her human intuition to merge their techniques with her own strategies. Despite the differences, she began to notice how much humans could contribute. Where Velari relied on raw precision and tradition, humans thrived on creativity and unpredictability. In one exercise, she used simple camouflage techniques to hide her team in plain sight, something the Velari had never considered. When the Krykson scouts attacked during the drill, it worked flawlessly. The Velari were impressed, and a new respect began to form. Alara also spent time caring for the child, who began to grow more comfortable in her presence. The little Velari would reach out for her, smile with the rare innocence that made Alara's heart swell, and sometimes even mimic human gestures. Each small victory reinforced her commitment to the role she had been given. One evening, as the twin moons of Kithara rose over the horizon, the queen summoned her. Alara followed, holding the child close, into a grand hall carved from iridescent stone. The walls shimmered softly, reflecting light in every direction, creating the illusion that the hall was alive. "You have done well," the queen said. "The Krykson grow stronger. They will strike at the heart of our world if we do not act. You must lead the strike team to intercept them before they reach the core cities." Alara nodded. "I will do everything I can." "Do not underestimate them," the queen warned. "Their technology is advanced and their tactics are ruthless. But remember this, courage and compassion are strengths, not weaknesses. The Krykson do not understand it, and that is where we will find our advantage." With that, she handed Alara a small device, shimmering with alien energy. "This will allow communication with your team and will guide you through the terrain. Use it wisely. And know this, your actions will not just protect my child, they will determine the future of both our species." The weight of responsibility pressed down, but Alara felt a surge of determination. She looked down at the child, who was now awake, staring up at her with bright, curious eyes. In that moment, she knew that fear could not hold her back. The Krykson would come, but she would be ready. She would not fail. The next cycles were spent planning and preparing. Alara worked with Velari strategists, learning their maps, their defenses, and their weaknesses. She also trained the human soldiers who would accompany her, sharing techniques she had learned from the Velari. Together, they created hybrid strategies that combined human adaptability with Velari precision. When the day finally came to move, Alara felt a mix of fear and resolve. The Krykson were already moving, their ships visible in the sky, dark silhouettes against the bright light of Kithara's twin suns. Her team, a mix of humans and Velari, waited silently, trusting her leadership. She climbed to a vantage point overlooking the valley where the Krykson would arrive. The terrain was treacherous, but it offered opportunities for ambush and defense. Using the alien device given by the queen, she coordinated positions, signaling her team to spread out and take strategic points. As the first Krykson scouts descended, Alara's pulse quickened. She could feel the weight of both species' expectations on her shoulders, but also the quiet strength of the child she had vowed to protect. That promise fueled her courage. The battle began with a sudden flash of energy weapons. Alara's strategies worked. Human ingenuity and Velari skill combined seamlessly, creating traps and diversions that left the Krykson confused and off balance. Each victory, small or large, reinforced the growing trust between the humans and Velari. By nightfall, the first wave of Krykson had been repelled. The battlefield was littered with remnants of their attack, but Alara's team had held strong. Exhausted but unbroken, she looked out across the field. She realized something profound. Humans were not just survivors in this universe. They were capable of courage, of strategy, and of forging bonds that even ancient alien species could respect. That night, under the twin moons, the Velari queen appeared once more. She approached Alara quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You have proven yourself," she said, "not just as protector, but as a leader. The Krykson will test us again, but now we are ready. We fight together, and together we will endure." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of the title settle firmly within her. Protector, leader, bridge between worlds. She looked down at the child, now sleeping peacefully, and whispered, "We'll face whatever comes next, together." As the wind rustled across the battlefield, carrying the distant sounds of preparation and vigilance, Alara realized that the journey had only just begun. The Krykson threat was far from over, but so too was humanity's courage. And with every step she took, every choice she made, she knew that she could change the course of the future, not just for humans or for the Velari, but for the fragile bond that now linked them. The twin sons of Kithra were just beginning to rise when Alara Vance climbed the ridge overlooking the central valley. The morning light glinted off the armor of her Velari allies, and the humans under her command moved with disciplined precision. Every member of her strike team waited silently, nerves taut but determination shining in their eyes. Today, the Krykson would strike at the heart of the planet, and it was up to her to stop them. Alara carried the small Velari child in her arms, now fully awake and staring at the horizon with wide, curious eyes. She had grown fond of the little one who had become more than just a charge. It was a reminder of why she fought, why she led, and why she could not fail. "Remember," she said softly to herself, then louder to her team, "we fight together. Humans and Velari are strong when we combine our skills, trust each other, protect each other, and stay alive." The ground trembled as the first Krykson ships pierced the sky, dark silhouettes against the rising suns. Their engines roared like thunder, sending echoes across the valleys. The enemy moved with speed and precision, their technology unlike anything humans or Velari had encountered. Yet, despite their fearsome presence, Alara felt a surge of confidence. The combined forces she led had prepared for this. They had adapted, innovated, and grown stronger together. The battle began with a deafening roar as the Krykson dropped their first wave of assault drones. Energy beams crackled and flared as the drones scanned for targets. Alara's team was ready. Velari warriors moved with precision, using their agility and energy weapons to disable the drones, while human soldiers used clever traps and makeshift shields to turn the enemy's technology against them. Alara directed from the ridge, her voice clear over the comms device the Queen had given her. "Left flank, move forward and hold. Human units deploy the mines along the ridge. Velari, flank right. Do not let them reach the lower valley." The Krykson were relentless. Wave after wave, they pushed, trying to overwhelm the defenders. But every time they advanced, Alara's strategies forced them into traps and ambushes they could not anticipate. Her human ingenuity, combined with Velari discipline and skill, was unmatched. At one point, a massive Krykson mech burst through the smoke, its dark plating glinting menacingly in the sunlight. Soldiers scattered as its energy cannons fired, carving craters into the valley floor. Alara's heart raced. She had expected threats like this, but nothing prepared her for the sheer scale of the enemy's machinery. Thinking quickly, she signaled the human engineers to activate the makeshift rail launchers they had built overnight. Massive energy-charged projectiles hurtled down the ridge, striking the mech with precision. Sparks flew, metal twisted, and the enormous machine staggered. Velari warriors moved in, their energy blades slicing through weakened armor panels. The mech fell with a deafening crash. Her team cheered briefly, but Alara knew the fight was far from over. The Krykson had one advantage humans and Velari could not ignore: sheer numbers. Yet every encounter reinforced what she already knew: humans were capable of thinking outside the rules, improvising in ways that no alien enemy could anticipate. Hours passed. Energy weapons scorched the earth. Soldiers fell, but others rose to take their place. Alara never left the ridge, never stopped observing, planning, and directing. She became the eyes and mind of the battlefield, anticipating the Crixan moves before they happened. At midday, the sky darkened with Crixan reinforcements. Massive warships hovered over the valley, their engines shaking the ground. Panic began to spread among the less experienced soldiers. Alara felt the weight of it all, the lives of humans, Velari, and the child she had vowed to protect. But she did not let it paralyze her. She climbed onto a rock outcrop, holding the child safely, and addressed her team with unwavering clarity. "We've come too far to lose now. We fight not because we must, but because we can. Use what you have learned, protect each other, outthink them." Her words ignited something in both species. Velari and human soldiers exchanged determined glances, energy weapons and rifles aimed at the approaching enemy. They moved as one. The Crixan strike force landed in the central valley. Massive creatures, armored and aggressive, charged forward, but every step they took was anticipated by Alara's strategies. Human soldiers rolled behind cover, Velari warriors moved with fluid precision, and improvised traps detonated, throwing Crixan troops into chaos. During the thick of the battle, Alara noticed the queen herself on the horizon, moving gracefully with a small contingent of elite warriors. The queen's presence was a beacon of courage for the Velari forces, and a source of motivation for humans who had never fought alongside aliens before. Suddenly, the Crixan leader emerged, a towering figure clad in dark energy armor, wielding a massive weapon that pulsed with lethal energy. It advanced toward the queen, its presence alone sending ripples of fear across the battlefield. Alara's instincts screamed at her. She could not let the queen fall. Without hesitation, she ran forward, weaving through chaos and energy blasts, the child still secure in her arms. Her team followed, inspired by her courage, forming a protective barrier around her path. The Crixan leader fired, and energy beams scorched the ground around her. Alara ducked, rolled, and continued, her mind focused solely on reaching the queen. The Velari around her opened a path, cutting through the enemy with elegant, deadly strikes. Finally, she reached the queen, placing the child behind her. "I've got this," Alara said quietly, drawing her own weapon. Together, human and Velari forces converged on the Crixan leader. It was chaos, but it worked. The combination of human unpredictability and Velari precision overwhelmed the enemy. The Crixan leader faltered, its defenses breaking under the combined assault. Alara fired a final shot, using a human-engineered energy launcher, striking the enemy directly. With a deafening roar, the Crixan fell, and the battlefield fell silent, save for the heavy breaths of the survivors. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted, the child clinging to her arm. Around her, soldiers, both human and Velari, looked at her with awe. They had witnessed a human lead them to victory, prove courage beyond what they thought possible. The queen approached, moving with her usual elegance and authority. She placed a hand on Alara's shoulder, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You have done more than protect. You have united our people. You have shown the strength of humanity." Alara looked down at the child, now sleeping peacefully, and smiled softly. "I just did what I had to," she said. "For them, for all of us." The queen nodded. "And that is why you are worthy of your title. Protector, leader, bridge between worlds. Your courage has changed the fate of our species. Kithara owes you more than words can express." Alara rose, looking across the battlefield. Humans and Velari worked together, treating the wounded, repairing what they could, and securing their positions. The Crixan threat had been neutralized, but the bond formed today would last far longer. She realized that this was more than a victory. It was a proof of what humanity could offer to the universe. Courage, compassion, and ingenuity that could stand even against the fiercest enemies. As the sun fully rose over Kithara, its light glinting off the repaired armor and energy weapons, Alara felt a deep sense of peace. She had carried one child through danger, and in doing so had carried hope for two species. The queen knelt before the child, whispering words Alara could not understand, but the meaning was clear: gratitude, protection, and trust. The little Velari smiled, reaching out to Alara's face. In that simple gesture, Alara felt the bond she had forged, unbreakable and enduring. The battlefield was quiet now, the echoes of war replaced by the soft hum of recovery. Humans and Velari moved side by side, united in purpose and respect. Alara looked at the queen, who nodded with approval, and then at the child, now peacefully sleeping against her chest. She had begun this journey carrying a wounded child through chaos and fire. Now, she had carried both hope and unity across an entire world. Humanity had proven itself, not just as survivors, but as heroes capable of shaping the fate of the universe. And Alara Vance, protector of the young, smiled, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and those she fought for could face them together.